The reason why she is mute is because anyone who hears her voice will be poisoned to death, which is probably what conservatives think anytime they discover my channel. There are going to be a lot of things thrown at you in this video. First of all, I have a new microphone. Who is she? Let me know if the microphone actually improves the sound for you though, or if it's pretty much the same as the rest of my videos, because if it is the same, I might as well return it. Second of all, gallery wall. Yes, I was finally brave to use a hammer and nail for the first time and put these frames up. I did have to ask a butch woman to help me though. And then the third thing that I'm going to be throwing at you is a bunch of new book releases. And I know some of you are probably wondering, Cindy, are you going to be talking about your book coming out too? I do have some good news. I can confirm that my book will officially be published. Yay! Bad news, it will not be published this year. Womp, womp, womp. I hope to make an official video about it at some point later on with more information, and I'll post that video when I'm ready to be perceived. But in the meantime, we can talk about books that are actually coming out this year of 2025. Because what's the point of becoming an author due to internet clout if you're not going to use the internet clout for good and pass it to other authors who deserve recognition as well? So I have put together a list of 25 anticipated books that are coming out in 2025 on my phone here. I tried my best to cap it at 25 books. Obviously, there are so many other amazing books that are going to be out this year. But if I talked about all of them, literally this video would be never ending. So what I tried to do for the list of 25 books for this video is I tried to prioritize more underrated authors, whether they were indie or these books were from smaller publishers, or maybe I just hadn't really heard about these books talked about often online. I also try to balance the list out with equal parts YA and equal parts adult. Some are fantasy, some are contemporary. Basically, I try to put together a good mixture of things. So hopefully one of these books will stand out to you. We got so many great stories to be excited about, but before I get into the list, I want to thank today's sponsor. A lot of the books that I feature in this list are going to be romance books, and I think we can agree that the best kind of couples in these books are the ones that actually practice communication and can actually manage conflict. That's why I'm glad that Paired is sponsoring today's video, because they are a relationship app that's designed to help couples stay in love with conversation starters and expert advice to strengthen communication and deepen emotional connection. Before I ever downloaded Paired, the games that my partner and I would play were pretty much from the New York Times. It wasn't actually helping us learn more about each other. So I really like that the Paired app gives us a way to connect to each other more meaningfully. There's so many different types of conversations that you can have with your partner on this app, and they can be done through games or quizzes or just general questions that make you think and want to hear what your partner's answers would be. And there's even paired experts to help you with your journey as well. Personally, I like playing their games where they ask you a bunch of questions like, would you rather, or who's most likely, or even just general questions about a specific topic. You put in the answers for how you would answer it, and then you guess what your partner's answers would be. And then when your partner fills it out, you get to see the actual results and see how accurate you were. So it's really fun for me to see this in like a game format. And it's also fun to just see our similarities and differences. So if you're interested in trying it out with your partner, you can click on the link in my description below to get a 7-day free trial and 25% off Paired Premium. So thanks again to Paired for sponsoring. And now let's get back to the video. All right, so 25 books is a lot to cover. So we're just gonna try to get through this quickly. I don't wanna make this video too long. Let's go in chronological order. Starting off with a book that came out on January 14. This is a cozy contemporary romantasy about a teenage witch who is trying to save her family's apothecary. So to save the family business, her nana hires the main character's ex-best friend and first crush. So, you know, that's a little bit awkward, but they got bigger things to uncover because there is a break-in. Someone steals a bunch of tonics from the apothecary, including one that the main character has been working on that wipes away a council member's kid's memory. So now they gotta investigate and figure out what's going on to avoid being shut down by the sheriff, because obviously even police in this world are incompetent and can't do the work themselves. If you're looking for more adult romance though, I do have The Launch Date by Annabelle Slator that comes out February 11. This is Enemies to Lovers, and fun fact, this author had worked in marketing for a very popular dating app, and I think she was inspired by her own background in that, because this story is about two rival coworkers who are forced to work together on a dating app. But obviously to launch a dating app, you got to test it out first. And so the main character has to test drive a series of first dates with the other person that is gunning for the same job as she is. And that is her work rival, who is also a playboy and socialite. And they basically go on a series of dates together and probably, most definitely, end up falling in love. Next, coming out on February 18 is The Girl You Know by Elle Gonzalez. This is a young adult dark academia thriller. And basically, the main character had a twin sister that was supposed to return to her final semester in the academy that they go to. Then the week beforehand, she told the main character she was dropping out. The main character is trying to convince her to stay and not throw her future away. And that's when the twin sister disappeared. Then 12 hours later, she was dead. So, the main character is obviously gagged and is like, what the fuck is going on? She knows the death was not an accident. The police are still incompetent and are like, that sounds like a work to investigate. So we're not going to do anything and have you figure it out yourself. The main character decides to figure out the truth by disguising herself as her twin sister and figuring out what dark secrets her sister was trying to hide from. If you think a mystery story sounds cool, but you want a little bit more of fantasy element, we also have I Am Made of Death by Kelly Andrew coming out on March 4. This is a young adult dark romance with some horror elements. And basically, the main guy in the story has had to struggle to make ends meet after the death of his father. And he sees this highly paid position to be an interpreter for an heiress who exclusively uses sign language. And because he is the hearing child of a deaf adult, he's like, this is the perfect opportunity for me. The reason why she is mute is because anyone who hears her voice will be poisoned to death, which is probably what conservatives think anytime they discover my channel. So the main girl finds someone who can offer her this surgical exorcism to try to help this weird condition that she has. She just needs to get the main guy out of the way. But he's like, no, I need the money. Also, I think I'm falling for you, question mark. The author herself is also hard of hearing, so I like that she incorporates her experiences with this mysterious story. Also coming out on March 4 is Say a Little Prayer by Jenna Voris. This is a young adult sapphic romance that takes place in church camp, because what could be gayer than church camp? According to all the films out there, that's actually the best place to fall in love with a girl. So the main character in the story is actually a bi girl who left her church a year ago, and then to add salt to the wound, her older sister also got shunned by the pastor for getting an abortion. And then later, the main girl ends up being threatened with suspension because she slapped a bitch for talking shit about her sister's abortion, which is totally understandable. And so to avoid suspension, she has to spend her spring break at a church camp. She still has the rebellious streak in her though, because she decides while she is there, she has this bucket list of the 7 deadly sins that she's just going to violate the entire time and hopefully inspire the other girls to start a revolution. Now, the romance in question here is her best friend who is also at the camp, and that best friend is the pastor's daughter. Number 6 on my list comes out on March 11, and it is What Wakes the Bells by Elle Tesch. This is a young adult queer gothic fantasy that is inspired by Prague legend. The main character has a job of being a keeper, which means that she has to look after the bells of this city that has been built by these saints from long ago. It's a family job. Basically, she has to make sure that the bells don't ring throughout the city. Otherwise, they will awake a slumbering evil and shit is gonna go down. So obviously in the story, the bells are gonna gong the fuck out. The gargoyles around the city come to life. They start hunting people on the streets. There's a saint that was trapped in one of the bells who is power hungry and pissed off as fuck. So the main girl has to figure out who the saint is hiding behind, and she can't roll out anyone for being a suspect, including her close loved ones. I was gonna rag on her for basically being a nepo hire with this family job, but considering how stressful it is, I will give her a pass for that. And then coming out on April 8th is Boys with Sharp Teeth by Jenni Howell. This is a young adult vampire romance. So in this story, the main character's cousin ends up being found dead on school property at like this exclusive academy. And the main character knows that the people responsible for this are the school's student leaders, who are like the social elites, these 2 guys who are very enigmatic. And she decides to investigate further by infiltrating into the school, and she uncovers some secrets that the boys are hiding. I'm sure you can guess what it is, considering this is a vampire romance. We got a dark academia setting. We got 2 boys where at least one of them's gotta be a vampire. And I don't know who she will end up with, or maybe with both. Is this a challenger situation? I don't know. We gotta read to find out. If you want more adult romance though, we also have Passion Project by London Sperry coming out on April 8th. This is a romantic comedy about the main character working as a temp in New York City, being very listless and lost in life. She's also grieving over the death of her first love. So obviously with our girly going through it, she stands up the main guy in the story and tells him that she's not ready to date. And because the main guy is a fictional man and not a real life man, he actually takes it pretty well and offers to help her because he clearly sees that there's more going on. She has lost her passion for life because she's going through it. And he offers to take her on a bunch of adventures where every Saturday they'll try something new in New York City. It is a passion project, literally, because it's about finding a passion again in life. And they can totally do this as friends. Now, will they remain friends? I don't know. Guess we'll have to see to find out. But for something with a dark comedy, we have Pride or Die by CL Montblanc that comes out on April 15. This is a young adult mystery thriller. It's about a bunch of members at an LGBTQ plus club that end up being accidentally framed for attempted murder. So in order to clear their names, they have to track down the real culprit themselves. However, the main character, as with many other queer teenagers, is just riddled with anxiety. She's also attracted to the victim that almost got murdered, who is the head cheerleader. And it basically seems like a ragtag team of queer people trying to solve this damn murder mystery. You would think that, you know, an LGBT plus queer club in Texas would have plenty of its own problems trying to survive. But, you know, this has to be on top of it as well. For those of you who want a mystery thriller that's more adult, we also have Julie Chan is Dead by Liann Zhang coming out on April 29. This is about a girl and her twin sister, and they are polar opposites. One of them works as a supermarket cashier. The other is an influencer. The inciting incident is that the plain sister that works as the cashier ends up finding her influencer sister's lifeless body passed away under mysterious circumstances, and she decides to use this as an opportunity to live her sister's life that she's always envied. When she goes to this week-long island retreat with her sister's group of influencer friends, there are certain events that spiral out of control, and then she realizes there may have been shady things going on that made her sister die, and she may be the next target. But I also think it's shady that the main girl would try to steal her sister's life anyway. Like, girl, you're not Yellowface. Pack it up. Number 11 on my list is To Sway a Soul, coming out on May 9. This is a new adult romantasy that is inspired by a Chinese folktale. So we definitely have some Chinese soap opera shenanigans going on for those of you who like watching Asian dramas. I believe this is an indie author as well, so I wanted to give her a little shout out there. But basically the main character is a farm girl who wants to become an artist and sustain herself. The reason why she believes that she can achieve her goals is because she's inspired by her master, who is an artist himself. He created this artwork that catches the attention of the city magistrate, who offers them both his esteemed patronage. Unfortunately, because good things don't happen to poor people, the painting ends up being stolen. So the magistrate tells them, you have 3 days to paint a replica, otherwise you're going to hang with the criminal that stole the painting. The main guy in this book is actually the thief who stole the painting. However, he ends up getting blackmailed by the main girl and has to help her retrieve her master's painting. So the story is basically about the two of them going on a heist together, and they have 3 days to do it. So, you know, no pressure there. Also, I'm pretty sure they're going to fall in love. Coming out on June 17th, we have If We Survive This by Racquel Marie. This is a young adult horror novel, and if anyone is watching Yellow Jackets right now, this is the one for you, because it is about a teenage girl leading a group of survivors during the apocalypse. Basically, there was this global outbreak of a rabies mutation that turns people into zombies. The main girl and her older brother are still alive. Their mom is dead. Their dad is missing. Their home is fucked though. And so they decide to venture out to a secluded Northern California cabin, and that is what they hope to be their safe haven. However, the world has changed a lot. So the book follows her journey going up the state and having to deal with not only the external factors of these zombies trying to kill them, but also the internal stuff of, like, you know, losing your family. This author has consistently written sapphic stories like throughout their entire publication history. It didn't say in the synopsis whether this was sapphic or not, but I would not put it past her. Coming at 13 on my list, we have Children with Gifts by Dami Salako, coming out on July 1st. In this young adult book, there is this teenager who has the gift of cryokinesis. 2 years ago, he was kidnapped and imprisoned and put in this gladiator style fight club. One day he wakes up to find that the arena where his fight club takes place in has been destroyed. His captors have been killed. and there is a trio of mercenaries that have saved him. But that's only because they are in trouble as well. Their boss is the leader of a powerful organization that essentially wants the main character to be recruited as assassins for hire along with the other mercenaries. So the four of them had to work together for this job, at the same time also wondering if they should double cross their boss in order to have freedom. But if they mess it up, then their boss is going to destroy everything they've ever loved. So it's a hard decision to make, but we love seeing a dysfunctional group of people try to make it out together. So that's why it's on my list. And then next, we also have This Is Where We Die, also coming out on July 1st. This is a young adult mystery thriller. Basically, 8 friends went on a trip together and only 6 came back. Nobody knows exactly what happened, and very conveniently, one of the characters has rich parents that just paid it off, make sure that all of the details get hushed up. One day, there is a private island that has a mansion that goes up for rent, and a bunch of classmates convince the rich girl to rent it out with her parents' money. So the 6 survivors go to the island and wait for the rest of their friends to come, but they never do. So that means they are now trapped on the island, cut off from the rest of the world, no cell phone service, no way out of here, and then they start dying one by one by the unseen killer that was probably also responsible for the other 2 that died in the beginning. And so now they gotta figure out who is the killer before they all wind up dead. For those of you who are wanting fantasy, we also have Beasts of Carnaval by Rosália Rodrigo coming out on July 29. Just like the title says, it's based on Carnaval. You go to an island, you see all of these amazing performances, you eat really great food, you drink wine, you have a great time with all the other tourists. So the main character in the story comes to Carnaval, and the only reason why she's going to Carnaval is because she is searching for her twin brother who disappeared several years ago. Yeah, we got a lot of twins in the year of 2025 for some reason, and some shit always goes down with the twin. This is definitely a world that seems very glamorous on the outside, and you follow the main character trying to peel back the curtains and find all of these dark secrets that are definitely based on the fact that these lands have been colonized. So the dynamic of having all these colorful performances while trying to figure out the truth of her disappearing brother is going to be very interesting to see. Next, we have Immortal Consequences by Ivy Marie. This is a young adult romantasy that's also dark academia, coming out on July 29. We got this mysterious boarding school that's located at the edges of the afterlife. 6 students have to compete against each other to try to change their fate, otherwise they will be stuck in purgatory forever. The romance being featured here appears to be a girl who is very ambitious and determined to win this competition, and she also has memories of a love that she lost. And then the main guy is a charming playboy who is now captivated by the girl entering the competition. Stepping back into contemporary, we also have Reality Check by Lizzie Huxley-Jones coming out on August 14th. This is a sapphic romance in a reality TV setting, which is the kind of shit that I have been asking for a while. So the 2 women in this book are competing for the same guy on this reality show. It kind of is giving The Bachelor vibes, but then they hit it off behind the scenes. And then it gets even more awkward because they end up being the 2 front runners of the show. And then they even share a kiss the night before the final coupling up. So then they have to choose between reality TV fame or taking a big risk with the woman that they have fallen in love with. All right, now we're going to go to the fall season, and very fitting for fall is And the River Drags Her Down by Ji-Yeon, coming out on September 1st. This is a young adult gothic horror. The main character has this ancestral magic where she can revive people back from the dead, but she's always operated by these rules to never do that magic for anything bigger than the palm of her hand. However, now that her sister has died, that just changes everything, and she successfully resurrects her sister from the dead. Yay! Bad news, there are consequences that come with that. They have to keep the resurrected sister a secret, so she's been going on these late night escapades, and she is so excited for the second chance at life and spending time with her sister again. But unfortunately, as time goes on, the resurrected sister starts to get really restless and hungry. She is invigorated by this new desire for revenge. And then after a series of these unusual deaths, the main character has to reconcile with the fact that the sister that she brought back to life might not be the same sister that she had known before. Number 19 on my list is going to be an indie book coming out on September 20. This is a queer fantasy book called When the Doves Cried by Kieran Dimitri. It starts off in 1863. There are 2 gods that are caught in the crossfire of the American Civil War. They have been outcast outcast for decades and they've been shunned from their homelands. They decide to end the war and start a new path, essentially altering history forever. And then they die. So then we cut to 1915. We now have two men in this story, and they have been torn away from their homes. They are serving on the front lines of World War I, and they find themselves drawn to each other despite not having any memory of their history together. I have a strong inclination that these two men were the same gods as several years before. So it sounds like it's going to be very epic and very tragic, as gay men stories often are. Next, on October 1st, we have Local Heavens by KM Farjado. This is a cyberpunk queer adult retelling of The Great Gatsby. So in 2075 in New York City, the Nick character from The Great Gatsby is now a Filipino-American who works as a corporate hacker and meets Gatsby, this elusive billionaire, and ends up falling for him. So in this futuristic world, there are wealthy people who can enhance their bodies through tech in order to cheat death. Nick has been assigned to investigate Gatsby himself, and this is where he begins to uncover the dark affairs of the elite. I'm really interested to see how the themes of The Great Gatsby translate to the futuristic setting of that, so that's going to be a really cool cyberpunk version of it. I also put down When They Burn the Butterfly by Wen-yi Lee. This is a lesbian queer historical fantasy that's coming out on October 21st. The book is about the secret societies of post-colonial Singapore. So in this world, gangsters are the last conduit of the gods that their ancestors have brought with them, and the secret alleys where they fight are the only places where magic has not been legislated away. The main character is one of the girls who can use magic by summoning flame. One day, her mother dies from a tragic house fire. A butterfly ends up being seared into her skin. The main girl runs to chase down another girl down the alleyway and sees that the girl also has a butterfly tattoo, which means that she comes from a gang called the Red Butterflies. They are girls who come from nothing, and they have sworn themselves to the fire goddess, and they have also been empowered to seek vengeance on the men that have abused them. So it turns out that the main girl's mom has led this double life as the patron of this gang, and she was considered to be Madame Butterfly. The main character becomes entangled with these girls while trying to figure out the reason why the mom died in the first place and who her killer was. Coming out on October 28, I also put down Dust Settles North by Deena ElGenaidi. This takes place in 2012 in post-revolution Egypt. It follows two characters who recently had to bury their mother and was also betrayed by their father for reasons that we don't know yet. One of the siblings decides to give up her spot at Columbia Law and stay in Egypt. And then the other sibling is a guy who stays in America and engages in a bunch of self-destructive behavior that makes him wonder if he's just repeating the same patterns as his father did. They reunite in Cairo a month later. At that point, the brother is at rock bottom and the sister is in the middle of the Arab Spring uprising. So the story is about the two of them coming together to confront the family secrets that they had and also reconcile how they had this conservative upbringing versus the new beliefs that they have now as adults. And it's essentially about healing and coming together after losing their mother. Then coming out on November 4, we have Girls Who Play Dead by Joelle Wellington. This is also about two siblings, except they have to investigate the murder of a friend in a small town in this young adult novel. The main character didn't even want to go back to his hometown, but he has to now that his sister's best friend has been murdered. And as the sister becomes even more of a hot mess with a whole bunch of secrets and rage, he realizes that the only way to try to help his sister is to figure out who killed her friend. The only thing that I know about the mystery that is going on in this small town is that it involves some kind of beauty brand that is essentially seen as like the lifeblood for the people who follow this brand. But time and time again, we keep on finding out small towns are sketchy as fuck. And then for the month of December, coming out on the 2nd, we have The Curse of the Coal Women by Marielle Thompson. This is a gothic story about 3 generations of women who are cursed. The curse is that each generation of women will give birth to a daughter, lose their love, and then take her own life by giving herself to the sea. So I'm assuming that means jumping into the ocean and like drowning herself. Some more information about these women. They have lived their lives as outcasts. They maintain a lighthouse on a small island. And the curse basically started when their ancestor was accused of witchcraft and cast herself into the sea. This is told in 3 interwoven timelines. And basically these women throughout the story have to reconcile with this question of whether they actually are cursed or are they suffering from some kind of generational madness that compels them to kill themselves in the sea. see. And then last but certainly not least, we have Twin Tides by Hien Nguyen. It comes out on December 9, and it's also another story about identical twins coming together to unravel a mystery behind their mother's death. It takes place in a small town. They also find out there's a ghoul haunting the waters, so some sketchy shit is still going on in these small towns. And they were also previously separated before, so what's up with that? They gotta figure out the tea behind that story. It involves a betrayal. There's no cover for this yet, but it looks like there will be a cover reveal on March 18 this month, along with an excerpt on the Bookish Brews blog, which is another Vietnamese media source. So I just think it's really cool to see another Vietnamese author writing these creepy ass stories. And I also found this mood board that they put together that seems really cool. It just sounds very atmospheric and a great time for the colder weather. And so that wraps up the 25 books that are coming out in 2025. Hopefully one of these stories sounds like something that would be compelling to you. I'll link all of them in my description below so that you can give the author some love. And until next time, I will see you later. Bye!